Just to recap, I want to ask you a question on the public, the city or the county or state officials. Were they badged? Did they have badges hanging from them or on the belt?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Do you know from where they were from? Like the state hospital, did it say anything on there?
Oh, you mean the
staff.
officials with the staff? No,
Yeah.
I did not notice a badge on them.
Okay, they didn't have badges
No.
apparent?
No.
Okay.
Of the individuals that came here to vote.
Okay.
No, I did not notice. I just knew that they were in charge of the individuals based on their ability to mentally function, coerce them to vote and so forth. And that's how I made my assumption just by observation. And the individuals voting clearly were mentally incapacitated and
Okay.
should not be voting.
Okay. Now, do you know about this already?
I'm not really sure what the situation is here,
Okay.
what we're talking about.
Okay, I'm going to turn off the camera. I'm going to have him explain to you what's going on, and then we're just going to react.
Okay.
What we can do-
And she explained to me, you don't even know the half of it was a response to me. This is the fourth group today.
Okay.
And I guess my service to the country, it's unacceptable, and I expect county officials to stand up and do the right thing.
What we do as the right thing is we can follow what the law says. The law tells us that we have to allow people who can prove their residency, that they are, unless we have prior authorization or we have notification or information available to us through the state systems,
Doesn't the law also say that they have to be out of the county on election day?
they have to be unable to go to the polls on election day. They have to be unable to go to the polls. That means absent from the polls or physically unable to go to the polls because of an illness or a disability. There are 4 reasons that you can vote absentee ballot. 1, that you're not able to go to the polls because you will be away from your precinct on election day. 1, because you are physically unable to go because of a medical condition or a disability, because you are serving as an election judge in a precinct that is not where you are registered to vote, or because of a religious observance on election day. Those are the only 4 reasons that you can vote by absentee ballot. So there are those limited situations under the law that allow for absentee voting. Unless somebody has physically been placed under a guardianship that particularly takes away their right to vote, and we get those records cross-checked through the Department of Human Services, through the Department of Corrections, the statewide voter registration system is cross-referenced with those different databases. Unless that specific right has been taken away, a person is allowed to vote and they're allowed to bring someone to assist them.
Are they allowed, a staff member, to tell them how to vote?
A staff member should not be telling them how to vote.
Or filling it in for them.
Or people can have people help them fill it in. But the
But I mean,
voter
when they
has to
vote,
be the one that is telling them what to fill in.
But that law, I think that law, I work in a lot of legal issues, okay? And I think that law where they can physically have assistance is in place for elderly that shake a lot and a
That's
number of things
perfect.
like that. You just can't take someone that doesn't even realize they're at a courthouse and bring them down here. I mean, there's got to be some kind of interpretation on your staff's level, or really check this. I mean, do you check with the county attorney when you witness things, or do you do something? Because I mean, this is who I am. I'm a service-connected disabled vet
I
from
completely
combat.
understand that.
And I tell you that I cannot believe that this went on.
I completely understand your frustrations.
And when
and
staff
understand.
behind the counter are like, you don't even know the half of it, but they don't stand up and do something. And that's my biggest gripe with this country, is most people stay silent and don't do anything. Okay, well, I stand up and serve this country and get it, all right? And I expect the same for people that I employ with my tax dollars.
Absolutely.
And these laws are in place, okay? And most laws are enough for interpretation. If they weren't, we wouldn't have attorneys. And these folks did not have a clue what they were doing, and
Who were they told to vote for?
they were told to vote for DFL candidates right down the line.
Now, first off, did you hear that specifically
Yes,
from
I did,
someone
and
say that?
and if I can point out the individual, because I confronted her, and I could point her out if I was able to view these staff members. She
Okay.
was a young blonde, probably about this tall. I mean, I could point her out dead right in a second.
Okay.
She obstructed right down the line.
All I can tell you from the county's perspective, we have to go by what the law says. So unless we have actual knowledge that these people are not having the right to vote, we have to allow that to happen. Now, there are legal avenues that we take. A lot of these things are things that happen after election day. Unfortunately, that's the way that the law
Once
is
the
written.
vote's in the bank,
Once
you
the vote's in the
can't
bank, you can't take that back.
But
and
what
there's
can we
nothing
do
you can
now?
about it at that point. What can be done, there is an election complaint situation that can be filed. You can file a report, an election complaint that gets forwarded to the county attorney's office. They would review that complaint and that process takes place. It's a review process that would happen.
So in other words, ballot stuffing will pass legally, even if it's being seen prior to election date.
Unfortunately, the law And I'm not saying it's ballot stuffing one way or the other. I'm not saying that that's the situation. We can only go by what the law says. The law says that if these are the things that are met, that we allow this to happen, that these votes get cast. If they do get cast and counted through the process of election day, then there are avenues after the fact.
But they're already counted.
But they're already counted.
Which
And that's-
goes back to Monty's point.
I
that,
completely understand that.
that it just enrages you as a citizen.
Absolutely.
Especially as we
As an
know.
election official, I
yeah.
agree that it is correct.
I know we're
either,
speaking
but
to the
we can
crier.
only
But
do-
how
We
about
can only
this?
do what the law says.
Okay, is it possible to have poll challengers, when they see something like that, can we post some people and go, you know what, they look incompetent, we'd like these ballots challenged?
But just your observation of what you have to have personal knowledge that that person does not have the ability to cast a ballot. To do a poll challenge, a poll challenger has to be appointed by either a candidate or a party. You can have one person per polling location. And you have to have personal knowledge of that person's eligibility to vote.
But if
So
they're
you would
walking
have to
around
know
and they
that-
don't even know where
But
they
you
are.
would have to have personal knowledge of their
But that would be
ability to
personal
vote.
knowledge though, wouldn't it?
Personal knowledge would be that you know all the aspects of that person's
Or-
medical condition and their ability.
or
to
Well,
vote.
we're talking about walking away from the booth and then
somebody
someone
else
just going, filling it in
ballot.
and turning it in for them. In other words, it left their site.
That
If
has
it-
gotta be.
That part, that should not be occurring. I mean, a person can have somebody who assists them with marking their ballot. And in some cases, that does entail that another person marks the ballot for them. That voter should be right there next to them.
Exactly.
They should not have
And then
moved them
telling
away
them to
and come
vote
back.
DFL, straight
And they should
line.
not be telling them who to vote for. However, you cannot watch what is occurring in a person's voting booth either. As a challenger, you can challenge a person's eligibility to vote in a particular precinct. You cannot challenge the fact that you think so-and-so is telling them to vote this way because you shouldn't be that close to that voter to know what is going on in that circumstance. You can't be in the voting booth with them
So
at that
what
same
can we
time.
do to help integrity with voting?
Law changes are the only thing that go into place. As long as we have circumstances that allow for absentee voting with these requirements and what is in place at this time, we have to follow what the law says. We don't have any authority to make judgment calls based on what our perceived notation is unless we have actual physical evidence or physical proof that tells us something different about a voter's capacity.
So there's nothing we can really do.
I mean, you can file the
Well, we
election
could file the
complaint.
election, we will.
I would
Right,
certainly
but then-
suggest that you can file the complaint.
Great, 200 votes just got,
There were not 200 votes.
no, but
But
if it
there
was
was
the fourth,
approximately 25. to
in
my
that,
knowledge.
she said it
In
was
that
the fourth.
instance, and she said that this was the fourth group. So that's why it's, who knows how many.
Okay.
And how many days did it go on?
Yeah.
I mean, when I started questioning this and started making calls and everything, and I got told, well, they tried this at the polls in the last election, and they got turned away by the voting judges.
Okay.
Okay, and so now this must be their new ticket. Come into the absentee.
You still have the
And-
same requirements at the polls as you do at the absentee precinct. It's still the same situation. If they got turned away from the polls, it's because they got turned away for not having proper ballot identification, or they didn't have the ability to register, or whatever the circumstances may have been on that particular date and time. We have the same criteria for voting at the courthouse through the absentee
But
purpose.
can you
as they do at the
register and
precinct.
vote the same day at
Yes,
an
you
absentee
can.
ballot?
Yes, you can. Same thing as long as you can prove your residency, which means that they had to have a driver's license or they had to have someone who was registered in that precinct vouch for them.
So there's no way, so there's no way,
As a piece of mail.
No, it's not as simple as a piece of mail. It's a photo ID along with a utility bill with that voter's name on it that comes to that address.
so there's no way to confirm that they're still living there, that just they lived there at one point. So you can't find that out until after
After the
election
election.
and the vote's already
And then
counted.
the vote gets
And that's what we've been
challenged. The
finding
registration
out
gets
since
challenged.
2008. For the last 2 years, we've been investigating
the
this.
way the
That's
law
exactly it.
says.
So we're watching it live right now. The very thing we've been fighting for 2 years and it's still going on. Who's the Secretary of State?
Mark Ritchie is the Secretary of State right now.
There we go. Okay. Should we go on and find who these people are? You wanna?
Yeah, something needs to be done.
Let's go.
People don't fight for this country to see this. I guess, I have every red-blooded American should be able to vote, but they've got to have some kind of understanding of what they're doing. And for them to dictate other lives when they're being supervised by someone with lack of experience and different thing and anything that's going on in their life is just ridiculous to see them supervise something like that and take advantage of these people on top of that.
Deborah, what's our next step then? What do we have to go to talk about the
If you want to
complaints?
file an election complaint, you can come back upstairs to our office. I can get you the form that needs to be filed for that process. That's the
Start it.
avenue that your next step would be.
I won't be able to film it, but I'll watch you walk away.
Great.
So I want to do that. Did you already do that already?
No.
Okay, you can come on upstairs and I'll get that for you.
I'm gonna take that.
You bet.
I'm taking it.